How's it going, friends? Welcome to episode 2 of the Facebook Hackers Show. Today I'm joined by Gil David, who runs an agency over in Belfast called Run DMG. Now, Gil and I cover quite a few different topics today, ranging from iOS14 updates, best practices around scaling, best practices around reviving campaigns if they're not looking so crash hot. So it's a great episode for those of you who are looking to get into media buying or Facebook ads. Good episode for those of you who are already well in depth with it. Those of you out there, freelancers, agencies, and everyone else in between, you'll get a lot from this episode. And we also chat about some strategies and tools that have previously become obsolete that are now more relevant given the recent changes to the Facebook marketing platform. So without further ado, let's get straight into the episode. All right, everybody, welcome to the show. I've got Gil David with me. If you didn't know, Gil runs Facebook ads and consults on accounts for businesses and agencies worldwide. He runs, since founding his agency, I should say, Run DMG in 2017, which I think is probably the best name for an agency, let's be honest. He's worked on a range of different clients from local businesses, health, beauty chains, e-commerce stores, some of the top real estate coaches in the world, nationwide fitness franchises, event companies, sports team, and more across the UK, US, and Europe, with budgets ranging, from a few £100 all the way up to 150K per month. In 2019, he became the first person in Ireland to be certified as an official Facebook marketing partner for technical services by Facebook, and only the 62nd person in the world to achieve this accreditation, which I think is epic. Love that exclusivity. He's got 15 plus years in the sales, marketing, and business management, and 5+ years running Facebook ads. Gil, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Rev. And yeah, good intro there. I'll try and live up to
it. That's so good, man. Well, for anyone who doesn't know you, I'm just going to give you my experience with you really quick. I've been following Gil for a while. I actually joined the Ag Leaks group in, I think it was September 2018 from memory. And you're posting some really good stuff. And I will say this really quickly. I know I've already thanked you, but Black Friday of 2020 was our best and most profitable for us and our clients at the same time. And you're a major part of that. So it goes without saying that I hold your expertise in very high regard, definitely.
Thanks, man. And yeah, glad to hear it. Like I say, I just posted that strategy because it's something that I used last year and it worked really well. And I thought, well, I don't think I really put it out there too much last year. And I was like, oh, well, I'll just stick it out there this year and see what people get with it. And yeah, quite a few people said they had really good results from it.
And, well, thanks for sharing that, and thanks for not holding on to that. I literally just came across it on LinkedIn. I was like, okay, this is interesting. I'll give anything a go, man. At the end of the day, I really adopt the testing mindset. I'm like, that's really interesting. It actually was, it actually kind of competed against my sort of beliefs around my structures. Tried it, worked phenomenally. I'd say it contributed to at least 15-20% of the revenue we generated for obviously our e-com clients through Black Friday. So yeah, that was epic, man. You better tell us how you got into Facebook ads way back when?
Yeah, I guess it was really slowly for back when I was kind of working for other people. I spent about, I think it's 13 years in the fitness industry. Yep. So I kind of worked my way up from being a sales consultant, selling gym memberships, which was, it was hard work, but it was good fun. All the way up to sort of sales manager, regional sales manager, and then I was actually managing health clubs. And it was, I think, somewhere along the middle of that journey where I started, the gyms I was working at, they were like, oh, let's start running some Facebook ads. And it was, I think, the classic way that everyone starts off, just boosting posts for £20-30. I think that was back in the days when there was like 3 different pixels. I don't know if you remember those days.
Yep. 100%. Yeah.
I can hardly even remember what the platform looked like. It was but back when it was very grey, I think, before they went all white. And yeah, so that was where I started off. And then really with the agency, this is back when I was, in 2017, I was 35 at that stage. I'd always wanted to have my own business. And the job I was in, I've been doing it for like 4 years. There was no progression anywhere. Nowhere for me to go, and I was moving anyway down to be with my wife, because I've been here in Northern Ireland now for I think 9 years.
Yep.
Been married now for 2.5. The wife will kill me if I don't know exactly.
Not long enough. Let's be honest, not long enough.
Yeah. But yeah, so at that stage I was moving anyway, so I had to find a new job or do something. And I did a diploma in digital marketing. It took me back because my degree originally was in marketing back in like the year 2000. And since then I've been in more sort of sales roles with a bit of marketing, but more sales. So it was kind of going back to that. But I always laugh because my degree then I don't think Facebook was even around actually. No, in fact it wasn't in 2000.
No.
So Facebook wasn't around, WhatsApp wasn't around, Instagram definitely wasn't around.
What you did?
So
you didn't want to do a diploma in MySpace marketing?
Bebo.
Yeah, Bebo. Oh wow, you guys use Bebo. So I did university, or college, whatever you call it, over in New Zealand, right? And Bebo was the social platform there, which was really interesting. But when I came back, I can't remember what year, but when I came back from New Zealand, no Bebo, only MySpace. And then, do you know what? I had this conversation a week ago, but we're talking about all of the social platforms. I remember every transition I had from, what was it? AOL online chat rooms, to some of the other chat rooms like Teen Chat, just people around the world, to MSN Messenger. That was big, right? That was our big one. That was a big one. And you used to put the little emojis to represent something that was going on in the world. It was interesting.
Well, like the song you were listening to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I got really nostalgic over it. It was quite interesting. And then I remember the transition from that to Bebo, but I don't remember the transition from MySpace to Facebook. I don't remember any of that. Do you remember that time you made that switch just randomly?
I think the only reason I got on Facebook was because my sister was going to uni or going traveling. And that was the main way. She was like, oh, if you want to keep in contact with me, I'm going to put all my pictures on this thing called Facebook. So our whole family joined Facebook just to keep up with what my sister was doing. Cool. And then obviously, since then, my usage of it's just grown and grown. But yeah, and then so I did a diploma in digital marketing. I started off, I went freelance as more of a general digital marketer because, I wasn't 100% sure exactly what I wanted to do, or even if I could make something of it. And finally using my marketing degree and what I'd learned in sort of 10 plus years in business. But then quite quickly I found out I didn't like wearing 10 different hats and doing sort of content, organic. I was even doing bits of basic SEO for people, web design. I designed one website and it's the last website I'd ever designed because the whole project was a nightmare and I only charged like £300, I think, for the whole thing.
Yeah, nice.
And just,
I think there's definitely a few learning curves in there, but you know what I put a lot of value on that is just, I really believe in just increasing your IQ around some of these different platforms, even if you don't run them, but at least on from a bird's eye view, you understand what good and bad looks like. I put a lot of value on that. And I honestly, I wished going back all those years, I sort of had a mentor, someone talking about SEO, because it's funny that you mentioned it. I got my paid media experience in fitness as well. Slightly different where I don't know why I didn't get into membership sales in fitness and gyms, because I think I would have been quite comfortable there, but I was doing personal training. And the gym, I don't know what it's like over there in Belfast, but here in Australia, you usually pay rent and you pay your rent to the gym and they'll send you leads, inquiries. Anyway, they didn't send me nearly enough to survive, put it that way. And so I was like, I'm going to need to figure out how to get leads. So I Googled how to get leads for a personal training business, fell into Facebook marketing. Fast forward, a few years and here we are. And I really wish I had that experience of having, let's say, multiple disciplines or just an innate understanding of some of these different platforms and these skill sets and things to operate holistically online. So I think that's excellent, definitely.
Yeah, it's definitely helped like with the Facebook marketing partners for technical services qualification, because that's a bit more codey. And even though I have there's higher levels of it, which I have kind of a dev who does that kind of stuff because I'm not a developer. I know basic stuff, but not to that kind of level. So yeah, it definitely helps kind of having a more rounded experience. I think my marketing degree has helped as well, because even though there was nothing to do with Facebook, it was really good for kind of giving me a good grounding in the general principles of marketing, which I think is something a lot of people in our space miss.
Yeah, that was my next question, Gil. A lot of, let's say, elites that I speak to, yourself included, are talking about foundations, and a lot of, let's say, would be, not saying it's necessarily bad, but there's less conversation and less emphasis on those foundation elements of marketing, which, in my experience anyway, is still relevant to date. You know what I mean? Definitely.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, one of the best things about our industry and the worst at the same time is that there's no barrier to entry. Anyone can kind of set themselves up and run Facebook ads for businesses or even start their own kind of little agency.
Yep.
But yeah, what I see too much of is people, they do one course, think, oh yeah, I like Facebook ads, pay $500 for a course, and then call themselves an expert and start taking on clients.
Mm.
And everyone has to start somewhere, but I definitely think, those people miss out kind of the basic principles of marketing, and they think you can do everything by, manual bidding or trying to hack something in Facebook.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
as well as I do, that can help you get better results, but you can't base your whole strategy around trying to hack things in Facebook.
You can only shine a turd so much, Gil. It's still going to be a turd.
yeah, exactly.
Yep, yeah, definitely, man. I totally resonate with that. I think I was quite fortunate to have that PT business to guinea pig a lot of these things. And, although Facebook, 5-6 years ago, whatever it was a hell of a lot easier to manage and set up ads and all that kind of stuff than now, that's still being able to have that opportunity, if you want, to be able to learn on my own money without having negative experiences with clients and all of that kind of stuff was quite a fortunate position where, as you say, anyone can go and do a course, and that's great. And I definitely recommend people go out and do stuff that's happy and learn different stuff and whatnot. There's got to be, I have to agree with you though, there has to be a line where, look, if you've done a course and you haven't unfortunately had real world experience, maybe guinea pig and run your own Facebook ads to get your own Facebook clients. And then maybe you fall into more of a consulting lead generation style of funnel if you want.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or just be upfront with people. I think like just say to people, I'm just starting out. I've done this course, I'm really keen to learn. I'll run your ads for you. Well, I think it's probably a class thing, but run them free for a month. You just put up the ad spend, whatever it is. I'll run ads, because the other problem is, there's no substitute for actually running ads. Like, you can do all the courses you want, but until you're actually running ads, you're in the account, learning, what works in that account, what doesn't, how you're going to test stuff, how you're going to optimize, that just accelerates your learning so much more when you're actually doing it.
Totally. Yeah. Same old story. Learning by doing shortens that learning curve by a long shot. What do you think is the most underrated skill that a media buyer could possess?
Good question. I think it's being able to look at things in context. So, and again, it's something that you probably see quite a lot of people in groups like panicking. They've had one bad day, or an ad's burning out or something. And it's like, what was it the other day? I think it was with that thing at the Capitol in America. And there was like, I saw a couple of posting groups, people like, oh, what's going on with my ads? My ads are really bad in America today. And I was like, switch on the news, mate. People have got other stuff going on. They're not sitting there waiting for your ads and buying your fidget spinner or whatever you're selling.
Totally get it. Bit of an overreaction, to say the least.
Yeah, so people are they're very like insular, like tunnel vision, just looking at what's going on in Facebook. And look at, especially over the last year, with COVID and the pandemic, which on the plus side, it has been for pretty much all our e-commerce clients, has actually been good for their businesses because of the way things worked out. But a lot of businesses have unfortunately gone under. Retail's been hit really bad. A lot of people have lost their jobs, or they weren't making the kind of salary that they were before, so they got less disposable income. So you have to look at all that kind of stuff and think, okay, maybe that's more the reason why my ads are not performing well than just kind of fiddling about and trying to do a $50 manual bid. So being able to look at it and say, okay, take a step back. Is it my ads? And generally, you can see that pretty much from if the sales aren't coming through, but if you're not getting at least a decent click-through rate, that says there's something you can be doing with your ads in the first place. But even then, if people aren't in a buying mode, if there's stuff going on in the world, then they're not going to be clicking the ads anyway. So you have to think, okay, is there something that I need to do in my account to try and turn it around? Because if there is, then you should absolutely do it. Or should I just, maybe cut spend a little bit for a couple of days, let whatever's happening in the world kind of play out a little bit. And then, when people are more ready to buy, then they'll come back and buy my product, and I'll show them more ads.
Yeah, totally.
So I think that's
definitely.
I think that's very underrated. Just being able to say, it's not necessarily me, it's the situation, but being able to tell that from the data and what's going on in the world.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I'll I guess I'd take an element or a page out of that book, Gil, and say that between that period of, say, Boxing Day and early Jan, there's always a lull for a lot of our e-commerce clients here in Australia anyway.
Yep.
And so, we'd cut spend significantly for that reason and then just ramp up spend. So although sales period's a little bit lower, it's not like we're overspending to get a conversion. Exactly what you say, just human elements and what's going on in society. The sales period, quote unquote, has more or less ended. Boxing Day sales, even though you and I know most people drag those out for a couple of weeks yet. Boxing Day
so
sales.
So then Black Friday sales then.
Yeah, even Black Friday sales, man. I won't lie, I'm guilty of it. But, here's the thing, launching a Boxing Day sale and it's still running to like the 6th of January, which I've seen over here in Australia. I'm like, come on, guys, just at least put a different name to it. But anyway, getting sidetracked. What would be one of your favorite campaigns that you've run?
Actually, there was some, how long was it ago? Probably 18 months, 2 years ago, I was running some political ads. And that was good fun because it was completely different from anything else I've run. So I spoke to a few people I know who run ads in the States for political stuff. And they said, yeah, all your e-commerce knowledge, it doesn't go out the window, but it does a little bit because instead of looking for conversions and obviously not looking for purchase or anything like that, or even necessarily traffic to a website, it's all really about kind of reach, awareness and frequency and hitting people. I try to see what messages resonate with people because we had tons of different ads just to test different messaging, and then whatever people were engaging with the most, that's the one that we pump more budget into, trying to get out there more, bumping the frequency up, especially a week before. So that was really interesting because it was so different to what I've done in the past, and because it was stuff I've done in the past has had an impact, but this was maybe having more of an impact in terms of trying to get someone good into a position where someone who hadn't been doing a good job was in it before. And the main result was our candidate won, so that was obviously the main thing.
Congrats, man. That's fantastic. Hey, that's like
that was really interesting, and then feeling like I was making a difference on a wider level as well. But some of the comments they got were horrible, like really bad.
They always are. Hey, I've only run one political campaign for an independent representative in Tasmania a few years ago now, and it was a lot of. It's funny that you mentioned that as your favorite campaign because that would have to be up there with my favorite campaigns. I would say there was definitely less stress involved because it wasn't so much based around conversions and such. But
not looking at ROAS every day.
Exactly right. Reach, frequency. Really our KPIs were based around how much we're paying per engagement and how many engagements we could get on there and video views, blah, blah, blah. But the gentleman was just a really good dude to work with. And we did some kind of tongue-in-cheek messaging. He's kind of shoveling horse poo and saying he's going to be up to in his neck and this stuff when he gets in and this kind of stuff. It was lots of fun, very different, but I haven't done one since. So if you don't mind me asking, what was any sort of obstacles or any hoops you had to jump through outside of getting verified for the political stuff?
No, I think it was just getting verified, which took a few days, but it wasn't too bad.
Oh, nice.
And then I think randomly, I think it was about a week into their campaign, for some reason I had to get re-verified, and then it was okay. But I couldn't do anything with the ads for like 24, 48 hours because I don't know what happened at Facebook. Yeah, I had to get re-verified. But yeah, that was the only thing. And it wasn't too bad. I think it's mainly just sending in your copy of your passport and a couple of other things, but that wasn't too bad, luckily.
Yeah, no, that's cool, man. No, cool. Thanks for sharing that. More so on the e-commerce side now, how would you identify that whether it's an established or a startup e-commerce brand, how would you identify whether that person has a good product for media buying, say?
I think the first thing, in terms of the actual product itself, if it's getting some traction, at least organically. So I do some work with, you might have heard of it, it's called Color, which is like a platform for influencers and creators in the States. Got that from your LinkedIn
as well, thank you.
There you go, yeah. So it's like, if anyone doesn't know, it's like kind of like a Shopify, but for influencers and creators on Instagram. So the clients we work with through that, they generally have fairly big followings. And we have like a sort of strategy with paid media where, we have different phases. And the first phase really is seeing if they're getting much organically from the stuff they're posting when they do a new drop or when they come out with a new clothing range. And that says a lot, first of all, about their audience, how engaged their audience is, how they built up their audience, because, you know, some creators, it's a lot harder to do now and you probably get banned for it, but, you know, in the past people would have just bought 10,000, 20,000, however many thousand followers. So yeah, so saying in the first place, if it's getting some kind of traction organically, you know, if people, you know, a bit further up the line, you know, are people actually converting on the website, which is, you know, potentially more of a website issue than the product. But yeah, upfront, are people, you know, engaging with the ads? Are you getting some positive comments? And are they getting some sales organically? Are they kind of building an email list up? And yeah, obviously a product that, it doesn't have to be completely unique, but at least somewhat unique. And if it's in a crowded space, it has some kind of unique feature or something that makes it stand out, even if it's the branding. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be something about the product, but even if it's got, you know, good branding that stands out and, you know, will get attention on social. But yeah, in the first place, if they're getting some kind of traction organically without having to run ads, because it's an old cliche, but it is true. Paid media is, you know, the fuel that you put on the fire, but the fire has to be there in the first place. You know, you can't you can't completely manufacture it just by spending a load of money on Facebook ads. There has to be something there in the first place in terms of the product and the fit it's got with the market.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah, that's a really good point. I have, I definitely found in my experience, I would say we probably consulted with maybe 5 or 6, you know, startup drop shipping brands over the past 12 months. And most of that conversation or consult was just around having a point of difference, really, you know, having some uniqueness to that product. If you're about to start drop shipping and you're just pulling that straight out of AliExpress or whatever, the longevity of that kind of stuff, especially if you're not first to market, is going to be very difficult, to say the least. You know, having done it a few times myself, you know, even myself and my mum, we started a pet products brand in February last year. And then COVID struck, and it actually worked out pretty well for us, because one of our top selling products was a pet playpen. And it was really interesting, man. That's why I just love Facebook ads. You know, being able to validate or invalidate something, even if you have to throw some money at it, just speaks worlds to me in terms of saving time as well. But we're able to find out really quickly that, yes, this product worked really well, and we could get a decent return on that, you know, only spending, you know, $100, $150 a day. But the most interesting factor of that was that you could, I know, and we found out through comments, right? People commenting on the ad, that you could get the same product, exact same product, from a local store that's well known here in Australia for about $15 cheaper. And we left those comments there, and my mum does a lot of the comment moderation. She's been in customer care for ages. So much fun working with her. And every single one of the good reviews we've gotten, although we're in a space that is obviously very competitive and literally pushing the same product as a local general store, reviews were saying that the shipping was fast, communication was fast, and that. And I've just found with that and some of our other clients that were in similar boats, that even just having an excellent customer care and super fast shipping can be somewhat of a point of difference, even if you were to just, you know, brand it the same product.
Yeah, and I think it's something that's underrated. Like, we have, I think it's luckily it's only about maybe one client where we have issues with them kind of running out of stock, or there's shipping issues, things like that, which is quite frustrating because they've had a feedback score penalty a couple of times in the last year or so. But it definitely makes a difference, and it's something that people maybe don't think about. And also the whole unboxing experience, because it's definitely worth investing some money in making your packaging nice, making it the kind of experience where people are going to, you know, without you even asking them to, you know, they're going to do a quick Instagram story or put something on their feed of them opening the packaging. And then that gives you, you know, free content for ads. But yeah, it's definitely underrated, like having good customer service, because, and I don't know how it happened, maybe it was because of Amazon or whatever, but I think people have started accepting a bit more of a mediocre level of service, because when Amazon came out, it was, you know, next day delivery, really quick, and people were like, oh, that's cool. And it used to be free. I'm pretty sure it was free, or there was like a really low threshold. And now, unless you're spending a certain amount or you're on Amazon Prime, you do have to pay for delivery for most stuff on Amazon, and it takes 3-4 days. So yeah, and obviously there's been challenges with delivering stuff at COVID as well over the last year, which is understandable. But I think definitely it's very underrated, you know, shipping stuff to people quickly. We ordered something and I wasn't even expecting it. I think it was Friday night. We ordered some clothes for the baby, and it was through Next, and we were expecting them. I think it even said like 3-4 days, and we're like, okay, cool, because there's a whole fiasco with shipping here to Northern Ireland at the minute. and it came the next day, which was a Saturday, about 11 o'clock in the morning. We were like, what? How did that happen?
Exactly the same with although it's a local business, like probably an hour up the road. We just bought an office chair for my partner Nicole, and I always wondered, seems really smart to say, oh, it'll be delivered in 4 or 5 days, and then deliver it the next day and be like, good surprise, right?
Well,
I always think about that. I don't know whether it's skepticism or I'm just like, was that intentional? Or that maybe a bit analytical. I'm not sure, but I always wondered about that. Definitely.
That's a good point, actually. Yeah, because if you say everyone next day delivery or whatever, inevitably there's going to be a small fraction, but there'll be a small fraction of people that don't get it next day for whatever reason.
Yeah,
and people aren't very understanding either. Like they blame the company for shipping delays when most likely it's actually the courier.
Yeah.
But I haven't thought about that myself. But that does sound quite a good way to do it. If you set the expectation for people that it's going to be 3-4 days. And then obviously you're exceeding that expectation a lot if it's coming quicker than that. So that's probably quite a good little tactic.
Yeah, something a bit different, isn't it? Here's another question for you. What would be your words of wisdom, say, to your younger self just getting started as a freelancer for media buying?
I don't think I'd necessarily kind of change anything about what I was doing then, because I think you have to make mistakes, and I think a lot of people make the same mistakes, but the key thing is learning from it quickly. And I think very much, when I was starting off, I was very much open to learning, and I spent a lot of time in groups, and as well as trying to give value back to people and posting stuff, I was always learning from other people and, absorbing that knowledge as well. I guess I'd say to myself, just, keep being open to learning. Although I have kind of less time for it, which is a bit of a shame now in some ways, I still do make an effort to be learning and spending a bit of time in Facebook groups and people that I'm connected with on Twitter every day, because Twitter is really good as well.
Definitely. Just
to kind of, even if you're not necessarily learning new tactics or whatever, but it's just keeping up to date with things, because Facebook moves so fast. And that's part of the reasons why, I had to kind of niche down so quickly into Facebook ads from being more general, just because so much was going on in space. The UI changes every few months. There's some kind of platform changes all the time on it. And even just keeping up with that is kind of tiring. So I just say to myself, make sure you keep staying up to date with everything. And I wasn't kind of doing general stuff for too long before I focused on Facebook, but I'd probably say, just go straight into Facebook. It's what you enjoy doing. It's what you're best at, just focus all on that from the start. Yeah, I think a lot of people have to do more general stuff maybe to find what they want to do. And that's okay. Yeah. But I would say definitely, like for me, it's been better niching down and being more of a specialist. And some people maybe, they might prefer doing a few different things and being more general, and that's okay as well. But it definitely worked out for me, picking Facebook ads and specializing in that.
I definitely agree with being more of a, let's say, a generalist or wearing multiple hats to get some experience as to maybe what you're good at or maybe what you actually care about as well. I remember at one point in time, had like 3 or 4 jobs, and I was, when Xbox Connect first came out, I was at the local kind of like electronics store, and I was giving people demos on how to use the Xbox Connect. And at the same time, I was an Alizé rep, giving people tastings of Alizé. And at the same time, I was doing sort of like promotional work, handing out flyers and that kind of stuff. And I figured out from that, I really enjoyed connecting with people. I really enjoyed communicating with people, whether I knew them or not. And I knew from that point, if I, fast forward however many years it's been, that's an element I still get working with clients, directly with clients. And, we're performance-based and all of that great stuff, but still being able to humanize some element of it. I don't think I'd ever be able to, sit behind the scenes and be like a silent operator, if that makes sense. But definitely that level of communication and getting an understanding of, from trying a lot of different things and wearing multiple hats, where your strengths lie and whether that's married together with something that you thoroughly enjoy as well. I definitely resonate with that one.
100%.
What would be your advice to someone to committing to build an e-commerce business?
I guess it would depend how they're going about doing it. If they've already found a product or if they're trying to find a product. So there's a lot of kind of drop shipping entrepreneurs out there. I suppose you'd call them, or just drop shippers even, and they're always looking for the next hot product.
Drompreneurs. That's a new thing.
Entrepreneur shippers. And And they're obviously kind of more product focused. They're trying to find a hot product that they can, sell, even if it's only just for a few months, and they can milk it and make a ton of money that way and then move on to something else. And then obviously the other side of starting an e-commerce business is having more of a brand and, having something kind of longer term, which is, I've kind of thought about doing it myself, but again, it's a kind of a time thing at the moment with not being able to do it. But it's something that I've, it's crossed my mind. I think it crosses everyone's mind that when you're running Facebook ads to a certain level, for other people, you think, why don't I start my own brand and run it for myself?
Yeah, definitely.
But yeah, I guess if you're doing it that way and kind of starting a proper business, then it's making sure that your branding stands out. There's something unique about you right from the start, and then stuff like making sure the products are good quality, because in these days, especially, you really can't get away with selling shitty stuff on Facebook for too long, because you will get a feedback penalty, and then your accounts will get banned, and you can't run the ads.
Yeah,
so it has to be good quality. Like we talked about before, making sure the service is there as well, and that you can handle, scaling up quickly, because if you're running the ads right and it takes off, you want to be able to scale up quickly. But you definitely need some kind of customer service there, or you're going to piss people off and they're going to leave negative reviews. And again, that goes back to, in terms of Facebook, your feedback score.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a good thing. Hey, just to jump in there really quick, that implementation of feedback score, and unfortunately, it's not always the brands or the business's fault. There can be tiny little nuances that maybe have been overlooked. But for the vast majority of, say, our clients and people that I've consulted with and business owners, it's almost always brought back to that whole let's say life cycle of that customer experience, right? In my experience, where maybe they got served that survey after they bought a product online that says how satisfied or dissatisfied were you with this brand? Did you buy something? And they get their service, and it's just like a prompt, like putting a little stick or a bit of salt in the wound if they've had a negative experience, and it's like bad, and then bang, down goes your page feedback score. I think that holds a lot of brands accountable to delivering an exceptional service, and I really think that's a good thing. Hey.
Massive. I think it's something that Facebook had to do, because it was getting a reputation, and some people probably still have that reputation of, fake stuff that gets sold on Facebook's fake, and you shouldn't click on the ads because they're evil and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that's definitely helped from that point of view, where if you are selling crap, then you won't get away for it for too long on the platform these days, because you will get a feedback penalty, and first of all, your ads will start costing you more, and then you won't be able to run them in the first place. So it was definitely a good move from Facebook, and something that you have to applaud them for trying to improve the experience of users that way.
Yeah, definitely. Like, where do you kind of see the platform moving from a media buyer's perspective?
I think, well, obviously we're in an interesting time now with I'm not going to mention the update that everyone's
Never
talking
mention
about,
his name. I'm just sick of hearing it. I won't lie for a second. I'm just like, okay, yeah, I have no data on impacts yet. I'll wait till that data comes through, and then I'll, start talking about it.
I mean, the main impact we see right now is you can't see your metrics in Ads Manager, which is crazy. Like, you have to mess about filtering by different things and turning stuff on and off just to see totals at the bottom of Ads Manager, which is crazy, because you can see it if you pull the stuff out in Supermetrics or whatever, you can see the data there, but not on the actual platform, but there you go. So in terms of the platform, yeah, I think people who have more of a marketing background and more of an understanding from that way, I think will show through even more than it has before, because with less attribution, and it's Facebook possibly can't optimize as well as it used to. Maybe broad targeting that's worked really well, but it's easy to get lazy, I think, with broad targeting, and just rely on that rather than testing different audiences, which is something I see quite a lot. People will have to start going back to, really testing different audiences, interests, lookalike stacks, all the different kind of stuff that we were testing a while back, and now it has moved to broad. I don't think it will go back to a bit more sort of the old days of, you do have to do a bit more work in the accounts and a bit more sort of hacking to try and get results similar to what you were getting before.
Yeah, man. I miss those days. Hey, I miss the kind of little nuances around, like, you remember the days when you would go actually quite narrow with interest stacking, or
go in two different levels. You've got narrow football team by a specific football team, and then specific
Oh, man, just so much fun. We one of our clients who sells say show jumping makeup for horses and all of that kind of stuff. That was so much fun to niche down to. Like, you've got interest show jumping, you've got a question like that, and so really, I mean, we understood exactly who we're trying to get in front of, which was great. Had an established brand, and it was really just about figuring out these tiny little details, and maybe the further narrowed audiences, quite small, like sub 80,000, some of them all here in Australia. And who were the most profitable, and what the what the repurchase cycle was like, if we could get those upsells and all that kind of stuff. But that makes a lot of sense. If there's big voids in the algorithm, again, I'm all speculating for anyone who's watching or listening to this, but I sort of see there'll be a void. There's not as much, I guess you could say, learning to be done by the algorithm. If however many thousands or hundreds of thousands of people opt out of tracking, right? And so you've got this hole in this algorithm that no longer has as accurate, say, feedback loop. There, I think, in my opinion, and jump in here at any time, Gil, that with that, there'll be opportunities to utilize some of those older tools, hacks, strategies, whatever you want to call them, and bring them forth into 2021 in order to, perhaps scale or see the same results prior to this whole, tracking issue and all that kind of stuff. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely. And I think people, it's forgotten sometimes, because it's maybe overstated sometimes, that you have to have a funnel and you have to send people through a process, and there's a user journey, because, again, as well as I do, people will buy for whatever reason the first time they see an ad, and you'll see that attribution straight away. Even if it's like, I've sold high AOV stuff that was, over $500, and you'd never think that people would, the first ad they see, click and buy, but they did. Whereas now, I think, you are going to have to go back to running other objectives, kind of TOF, like video views and running engagement, things like that, to get out to a wider audience, get them in the funnel, and then, try and be selling to them over 7 days, that you can get the attribution for. Because it's going to be awkward, losing that whole period from 7 to 28 days. And also 1 day view attributions going out the window when the update rolls out, like it seems to be in the last couple of days. So that's another challenge, because a lot of people are going to see, especially in retargeting, it's going to go way down. Because, and it's quite surprising, actually, some accounts, and it varies obviously across them, but some accounts, like, you get as much as maybe a 0.5 X ROAS a day from 1 day view attribution. And, it's a whole other debate of saying, should we be counting that as a sale, or should it not be counted? Which, like I say, it's a whole other story that we could talk about. But yeah, it's going to definitely be a massive period of adjustment. People are going to have to change the way they do stuff. Like I say, I don't think, just targeting 18 plus USA is going to work as well as it used to, because whatever happens, Facebook definitely is going to have less data and less, slightly less quality data than it did before. And the crazy thing to me as well is that I haven't seen anything from any other platform about how they're dealing with it. And literally the update, we've seen people's phones are starting to get updated the last couple of days, although I don't think the actual prompt that everyone's talking about, the ATT prompt, is out yet. But there's a setting in the back of iPhones where people can even, so first of all, to kind of backtrack, so the main thing is the prompt that says this app wants to track you. Do you want to allow it? And it's not even yes or no. It says allow app to track, or don't allow app to track, or allow. But there's a setting in the back end which will stop apps even asking that in the first place. So you're basically saying, no, I don't want any apps to even ask me about tracking. I'm opted out completely. So, and I think that's where a lot of people will think, oh, great, yeah, I'm not going to see any ads. It's not the case. You're still going to see the same number of ads you saw before, but they're just going to be far less relevant, because they're not going to be targeted, because the advertiser, whether it's Facebook, Snapchat, Pinterest, or whatever, they won't know what you're interested in. So to me, it's, there needs to be a lot more education and nuance to it, which is why this update is such a problem, because there isn't any nuance to it. There's, I think, one tiny sentence that advertisers get to try and say why people should opt in. And yeah, like, obviously we don't know till it happens what percentage of people opt out, but I think Facebook are saying they say it's at least going to be 20%, and worst case 50% plus of people that are actually opting out.
No, that makes a lot of sense. I find it interesting that makes a lot of sense. Broad targeting wouldn't work as well. Would you? I guess with that, I was going to ask that what your thoughts were going to be in terms of, say, lead costs and just a rough kind of cost to advertise in general, maybe even just to reach people, CPMs. Would you expect that broad targeting, speculation, of course, to go up or down with this void that inevitably seems to be upon us?
Good question. I think we might even see a bit of a deflation in CPMs. At least they won't accelerate, the same level they have, because generally they go up kind of anywhere between 10 to 20% each year. But possibly, and I think, this is why I was saying the updates from last week where you can't see your data is a problem for Facebook, because if people can't see their data and they don't trust what's in Ads Manager, they're, worst case, they're not going to spend more, or worst case, they're going to cut spend. But they're definitely not going to be scaling based on numbers that they don't trust in Ads Manager. And then if people are cutting spend, or if people stop advertising, then obviously that there's less competition, so that in theory would deflate CPMs a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see, because I've noticed the last week or so CPMs have been going up again. Like for a while we had quite a good period of CPMs going back down after Q4 there. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But yeah, my feeling is that CPMs, at the very least, they won't accelerate at the same rate that they have been the last few years.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks for shedding some light on that. Out of iOS 14. Oh, no, you're right, man. Do you think that's all good? What sort of dog you got?
She's a crossbreed. She's a mix, a Spitz, a German Spitz, and a Shetland sheepdog.
I have no idea what that would even look like, man. Wow. Yeah. It's a really nice looking dog. There's
and people over here love the dogs. Like there's, I think just down our street, there's must be about 5-6 families that have dogs down our street. So I think in terms of like being a nation of dog lovers, then yeah, Northern Ireland's definitely up there.
Well, what are your top? Actually, here you go. Here's the question I want to ask you. Now I know what my favorite strategy / hack of yours is, but what's yours?
I'm trying to think what your favorite one is of mine.
I'll tell you. You have to tell me yours.
I'd say like mine is actually that setup that I use on Black Friday. That'd be my. And it's not necessarily a hack. It's definitely more of a strategy than a hack, which I like as well, because there's only so much life you can get out of hacks. Whereas that there's a lot of thought went into it. I don't know if you saw my post afterwards actually, where I actually wrote that down the first time. Because I'd used it the year before, but I kind of whiteboarded it out then, and obviously the whiteboard had been, wiped off millions of times since then. So I was sat there thinking of the strategy, and I was talking to Chris in my team, because he was the one actually sort of building it out. And all I had in front of me was, because I like scribbling stuff down on paper. Like you can have all Notion and Evernote and all that kind of stuff, but really for me, nothing beats actually scribbling it down or scribbling it on a whiteboard. I didn't have my whiteboard to hand, so literally all I had to hand was the back of an envelope. So I scribbled it down on the back of an envelope, crossed a few things out, changed a couple of things around, and I was like, yeah, that's it. And then sent that over to Chris, and he built it out. And it made several of our clients a lot of money. And it was just kind of funny that I just scribbled it down on the back of an envelope, and that was where it sort of came from that year. But yeah, that probably be my favorite one, because I've seen similar setups, but it's definitely something that's
definitely unique. Definitely unique what you've got set up there. Yeah. That's my favorite strategy of yours, man. And that what was that? That was October, November last year from memory. Specifically the way you set up the first retargeting campaign. And for anyone watching or listening, I'll put the link to Gil's LinkedIn to that post in the show notes, so you can go back and have a look at that one. Yeah, you're gonna get like you're gonna get maybe 500 follows really quick. Maybe not that much actually. It hasn't got that many downloads, but you get a few comments really quick. I've got this segment called Hot Seat, right? And it's just 2 random scenarios that I've come up with, and just interested to see where your brain and where your strategic mind goes with it. Yeah. So first scenario is you've got an account that's been working fine for weeks. It's profitable. and then all of a sudden over the past 2 days, it crashes. What process do you go through to identify the problem and fix them?
I guess, depending on how much you're spending, you'd pull back the spend a little bit if it's completely crashed. My first thought would be going back to what we talked about earlier. Is there something going on in the world? Has the client got inventory? Is there anything wrong with the website? Is normally one of my first thoughts. If that's all seems to be okay, then again, kind of moving up the funnel. So we're not getting purchases. Are we at least getting add to carts? And what's the cost there? Is the cost there, within what we'd expect in the account, or has that gone up? And then, backing up the funnel, like if that's okay, what does CTR and CPC look like, and CPM as well? Has CPM suddenly spiked for some reason? Are CPC and CTR within sort of the kind of levels that we'd expect, or have they suddenly crashed as well? I wouldn't necessarily rush to show something over only a couple of days, especially now, because we're seeing there's definitely more kind of a lag with the data since Facebook did those updates, whenever it was last week, a couple of weeks ago. And when you're used to seeing a certain level of purchases coming through that day, it's hard not seeing many and thinking, oh shit, what's going on? But what increasingly we're seeing is, it does look a bit crappy, the day one performance, but then within a couple of days, because of this lag that's starting with the data, then it's actually, it's okay. So we're having to tie that again with, it's slightly off the topic of what you asked me, but kind of looking at overall store revenue and seeing, okay, is store revenue down as well? Because then that's, that says that definitely there's something, not right with the ads, or we're having a bad day. Whereas what I'm seeing in a few different accounts is, it doesn't look great on Facebook on the day or the next day. But looking in the store revenue is fine. It might be, maybe slightly down or slightly up even. And then, it's nothing to panic about.
Gotcha.
So that'll be my process. If an account does suddenly crash, going up the funnel, seeing where the problem is it the cost per ad cart? Has that suddenly gone up for some reason? Are CTR and CPC spiking for some reason? And is there anything else going on with the business or in the world that could factor into that? And then, whatever you find is going wrong, if you need it shouldn't be that drastic that you should suddenly need to start a whole load of new ads just on a couple of days. But generally that always helps. If you can't think of anything else, or you're having trouble seeing a problem, try new creative, and that will often get you better results or back up towards what you were expecting. But yeah, definitely checking the website and seeing what else is going on in the world, and is there an outside reason for why it suddenly crashed? Because obviously it shouldn't happen.
Yeah, I'm really glad you touched on that. External influences or someone's environment or what's going on in the world. If you just look at Black Friday, especially the past 2 or 3 years, where here in Australia we're adopting it more and more and more and more and more. And I gauge that by how much I'm seeing bloody Gymshark's ads. But the anticipation created, and if I think about my own personal experience, I won't buy something 2 or 3 weeks out from when I know Black Friday is, because I know that that's going to go on sale. They are, aligning me into buying mode. So, that in itself is an extreme example of quite a positive environment to be advertising, not just on Facebook, just about anywhere, right? Because people are in that buying mindset, and quite impulsive, right? Obviously the opposite is also true, just obviously from a negative aspect. As you mentioned, what was going on in the capital that day, and people wondering why for that day or the 2 days, the results and all of that sort of stuff started tanking. We've got to be mindful of those things, as well as what's going on around the world, especially in, quite a volatile environment like what Facebook is presenting with us now as a result of, this Apple stuff going on, among other things. So that's really good advice, man. I know a lot of people appreciate that one, definitely. Scenario number 2 is, if you've got an account spending 1K a day, how do you get it to 5K a day profitably?
I guess you need to have the basics in place. So first of all, can they scale to 5K a day in terms of their inventory levels, fulfillment, and can their customer service handle that level of orders suddenly? So yeah, making sure that's in place, because that's important. And also Facebook limits, because generally, you have a limit on accounts. Like I got hit with it with a new account stupidly back in, I think it was October. So we started a new account. I think they wanted to spend, it wasn't 1K a day straight away. I think it was about £500 a day. and we were stuck at £50 for the first 6 days because Facebook had a limit on the account because it was a new one.
Oh, of course.
And then there's other limits as well, which I think there's one about 4K. So we had a problem at Black Friday with a client where they were going from spending, I think it's about 1.5K, and then I was trying to scale up past, to 5-6K a day over the Black Friday weekend, and we got stuck at 4K for a couple of days. So making sure the basics are there first, and maybe it's my own kind of strategy, but I don't know how all in on CBO you are or not, but most of our accounts we use sort of a hybrid of CBO and ABO. And really, like getting from 1K to 5K a day, really you want to be duplicating your best ad sets or CBOs and starting them at much higher budgets. And what I would say, you're not going to do it that quickly, going from 1K to 5K a day in a normal time. Like Black Friday, you can probably do it. And I think I have scaled up that kind of level before in a couple of days. But definitely the rest of the year, you're going to want to do it a bit more incrementally. So over kind of a week to 10 days is probably the quickest you'll be able to do that, unless something really takes off. Because the other thing is you want to make sure that what you're seeing is sustainable, instead of just we've had a couple of good days. Everyone in the US got a stimulus check yesterday, which is why our ROAS was double what it normally is, and we scaled up to 3K a day. So you definitely want to look at it kind of being sustainable, I think, because one of the worst things you can do in accounts is kind of scaling up and scaling down, scaling up and scaling down. So having the basics in place. What I do in terms of actual tactics is kind of duplicating the best ads or ad sets and starting them at much higher budgets, making sure that you've got creative as well, because at that level of spend, you 100% have to be testing creative all the time. So I always say to people, you should be spending, even when things are going well, you should be spending at least 5% of your budget on testing new stuff every single week. You don't have to have new ads every day, but at least be testing 3-4 different ads a week minimum. At that level of spend, you're going to need definitely more creative, way more creative than you did at 1K. It'll probably depend on the market as well, which is important, because if it's the US, you might be okay, but and Ireland's probably fairly similar. Like we only have a couple of clients that just sell in Ireland, but similar to Australia, when there's way less population than there is in the States, way smaller audiences, but your creative will burn out much quicker.
Totally.
So it's being aware of that and having that in place, because you don't want to scale up to 5K. This is great. We get a great week, 10 days, and then all the creative starts burning out, and you've got nothing there to put in, and you end up having to scale back down to $500 a day. So really making sure that, apart from having the basics in place logistically in terms of the business, but also saying to the client or wherever the creative's coming from, we're going to need a lot more creative. Let's get that ready, get it briefed in, and let's get at least 3-4 bits of new creative coming in every single week.
Yeah, that's fantastic. That's my go-to, man. If something's going, trending down, new creatives brings it back to life, if only temporarily. Like that really is my fail-safe. Even for our agency account, like it's just, I'll be down the beach and I'll be there with Nicole walking, and I'll just be like, okay, time for a new creative. Video goes up and away we go. Like that's usually enough to keep a lot of our lead costs down, especially, and a lot of fun to do. So just to,
I don't know if you do that as well, but even an ad, like my first thing would be, if we've got an ad that's worked well for a while and it goes down over 3 to 7 days, then even just duplicating that same ad, exactly the same, and then give the new ad 2 to 3 days and see how it does. But often that helps kind of prop performance up as well. Just minimal work. You don't have to come up with a new ad or anything like that. But while you're testing other ads, it often buys you a bit of time, even just duplicating the same exact ad and giving that 2, 3.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. It's that's kind of either step 2 or step 3 out of doing some new creative, is just a quick duplication. Usually with an ABO especially, and it just breathes a bit of life back into it. And at the same time, exactly as you mentioned, we'd be asking for new creative or subbing some new sort of creative in as well. So just to get it straight, so we'd be looking at scaling, getting the foundations right, making sure the client or yourself, whoever's got the business and running the ads, has the inventory, can fulfill and all of that kind of stuff, and the customer service and that influx. as well as perhaps getting ready to more frequently push out creative with the increase in ad spend. Now, for anyone who doesn't understand the concept of why would you duplicate the same ad set and ads within a CBO, what's the reasoning behind that?
So basically, CBO, it's pointless really having a CBO with only one ad set in, because that's not, that defeats the object of having the budget and campaign level and all the stuff that Facebook says about learning which ad set to send budget to and that kind of stuff. And like quite a common misconception I see is people, or when they get on a call with a Facebook marketing expert and they say, "Oh, your audiences are overlapping" and that kind of stuff. And it doesn't work as well as it used to, but you probably used to do this as well, like 2-3 years ago, where if you found an ad set that worked in ABO, you could just duplicate the same one. Some people would do it even 10 times at different budgets. And you knew that out of those 10, they're not all going to do well, and some of them will bomb, but probably 2 or 3, will do well, and you can scale those up. So it's really just kind of giving the algorithm more opportunities. It's also, I'm the philosophy as well that the first kind of few thousand impressions that an ad set gets is really important for it learning in a positive way what does and doesn't look like a sale or a lead. And that's where that comes in. So even though it is exactly the same ad set, you're just basically giving Facebook more chances to find buyers within that audience or leads within that audience. So yeah, that's something that's worked quite well. Alongside, obviously, you would want to have CBOs where there's different ad sets and the targeting is different. But yeah, for scaling, that's worked pretty well for me in different accounts for probably the last 18 months. Just taking an ad set that's proven in ABO. And duplicating it 3-4 times in a CBO at a higher budget.
Excellent. I knew we were going to get some juicy tactic today. That's fantastic, my friend. Thanks for that. Last question, bit of a doozy, bit of a curveball. What question haven't I asked you yet that I should have asked you?
You've been pretty thorough. You covered most stuff. I don't know if you saw me. I think I tweeted something the other day about it. Like what's the number one mistake I see people making? I don't know if you asked that.
Not on Twitter. I'm more of an observer on Twitter. I rarely interact. Yeah.
You should do. Like there's a good community of good level kind of media buyers and agency owners on there. Oh. One of the worst mistakes I see in accounts is just people not testing or people running one ad in an ad set. Which again, going back from what we were talking about there with ABOs and why ABOs work by giving Facebook options, the same way you're defeating the object of Facebook advertising if you only run one ad, because you're not giving Facebook any options in terms of what kind of creative or what copy it's showing to your audience. So that's why I always say to people, you should have at least, it's fine if you tested a load of different ads and one's one, and that's why there's only one ad running in an ad set. That's fine, but you should start off with at least absolute minimum 2 and ideally kind of 3 different ads in an ad set to give Facebook different options to show people. And then after a few days, you'll see one will inevitably be doing better than the others. Probably Facebook spending more of the budget on one than the others. And even if you can't necessarily see one winner straight away, then you'll probably see a loser that you can kill after a few days. And then you'll know, okay, this ad looks pretty good. Let's spend more on it. Let's put it in more ad sets, that kind of way. I do quite a few audits regularly, and that's one of the main things I see in accounts that frustrates me, because there's so much opportunity there if people just tested more, and not running just one ad in ad sets.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. That's the game. That's the part of the game that I really enjoy, is just it's never stagnant, very obviously hyper stimulating, because it's never pretty much the same 2 days, at least, not simultaneously anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
That's a good, man. Well, people want to reach out to you. There's going to be people who want to, hit you up, ask you for, some advice, maybe do some consulting and engage Run DMG as well. Where can people find you?
So you find me, I'm pretty active like LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm active on Twitter. So at Gil, GIL _Run DMG. Or if you like Instagram at GO Run DMG. And you can always send me a DM there. Whatever. I'm always happy to help people out when I can.
Yeah, excellent. I'll put those in the show notes too, Gil. But mate, thank you so much for your time, man. Your knowledge, as I said, it goes without saying, I hold your knowledge and everything and skill set in very high regards. So anyone who's thinking about reaching out to Gil, make sure you do. Otherwise, thank you so much for your time, man. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Reb. Yeah, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks for listening, folks. If you enjoyed it and you got something from this episode, please follow us on Spotify, subscribe on YouTube if you're watching, and also, if you take a screenshot of the podcast, upload it to IG Stories and tag me at Revel Lachlan, I've got a little gift waiting for you on the wayside. Speak to you soon. Bye for now.